Welcome back to today's video. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the 2024 Senate map for the 2024 election. We are doing this exactly about 3 days before the election, an extremely critical race here in the Senate. A lot of very close races here, especially in the Rust Belt. Even Arizona is starting to get really close with some new Atlas Intel polls showing Kari Lake in a better position than how she was just a week ago. But this is a very interesting prediction. In today's discussion, I have Colden Foster on the line with me right now. He's also a political analyst, and he's going to be talking a little bit about this. So, Colden, would you do a quick second and introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Colden, and I just like to say before we get into this video, unlike my friend Political Analysis, who is unbiased, I do tend to look at things through a right-leaning perspective. I am a Republican, but I will try my best to be unbiased for this video, but just a heads up that I am part of the GOP.
All right, so taking a look at our Senate race right now. So currently, if we take a look at the polls, it is getting a little bit better in some of these polls here for Republicans, although Democrats are most likely going to end up winning. In the state of Wisconsin, Baldwin is currently ahead by around 1%. If you take a look at some other races, for example, Montana, Tim Sheehy, who was before pretty behind actually at one point, he was behind by around 5%. He's currently leading by around 6.5%, along with some down ballot effects from Donald Trump that could definitely end up helping some of the Senate Republicans here. In the state of Arizona, you currently see here that Ruben Gallego is ahead by 3.9%. Kari Lake, on the other hand, in the most recent Atlas Intel poll, is ahead by 1%. Although Ruben Gallego is still probably going to end up winning in this particular Senate race here. Also, take a look at the state of Pennsylvania. Currently, you do see that Bob Casey, who's a two-term Democratic senator, is ahead by 2.4%. So Republicans are in a little bit of a better position than how they were maybe like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. They're in a much better position as the race is really coming in. So what are your thoughts, Colden?
All right, so in terms of the Senate in general, I do believe that this is obviously an easier year for the Republicans, especially with West Virginia being probably one of the easiest flips in recent history of all time. West Virginia, for those who don't know, used to be under the seat of Joe Manchin, a Democrat, but he was most likely going to lose this year and he dropped out. And the Democrat nominee, I forget who it is more left-leaning than Joe Manchin. And considering this is a presidential year and considering that the split ticket effect has been going farther down in the USA in recent history, I believe that West Virginia will easily go to the Republicans, especially with Jim Justice. So if the Republicans hold on to their seats and flip West Virginia, it's tied 50-50, and then they just need to get one more seat. Obviously, I believe that Montana is the path to victory for the Republicans, considering that Montana will most likely to go to Trump by mid-double digits, I would say. So even if he goes like below Trump by 13 points, he'll still win, albeit by a narrow margin. And there's no way that the Senate candidate will get outrun by the president, or that the Senate candidate will outrun the presidential nominee by honestly more than like 7 points. That's the most I would give, and even that is stretching it a bit. So I believe Montana and West Virginia are easy flips for the Republicans. I also believe that they have a pretty good chance in Ohio. It will most likely go to Trump by near double-digit margins, I would expect. I would be surprised if it didn't. And despite Sherrod Brown being a popular Democrat incumbent, I do believe that Bernie Moreno will be able to cross the finish line due to the low propensity Trump down ballot voters. I believe that will be integral for the Senate this election. Can we please go to states, like state-by-state basis, if that is all right with you? All right, so if you will, let's start in Florida. I think that is a good start.
So Scott's ahead by almost 5%, probably going to win by a larger margin, probably.
Yeah, I believe that Scott, even if he's like overestimated, which again I don't find that's going to happen, Rick Scott for some reason is just really good at winning by the narrowest of margins. But I think that this election won't be nearly as narrow as that 50.01 to 49. That victory was just like so razor thin. I believe that he will win by a larger margin this election. You see the New York Times Siena poll, albeit it is a bit old at this point,
Yeah.
but not too old. +9 is very good. The Maris poll, Maris does tend to be a bit left-leaning in my perspective. Scott +2, that's still, I would say, pretty good, considering that
He's definitely going to win by more than 2%.
Yeah, Scott was losing in the aggregate most of, what year was it?
I think 2018, right? Last time around.
2018 was also a blue year. Nobody really expected him to win, and he did. So I think that Florida will go to Rick Scott.
Yeah, and like historically speaking, Republicans win Florida by like extremely small margins. Even like Ron DeSantis in 2018, he won by like 1%, right?
Yeah.
And even if you look at it historically, Republicans win by like almost like 1% exactly, right? In most of the Senate races. So even Senate and governor, yeah.
As a conservative, I always find it funny when the Republicans always win Florida by a razor thin margin.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, but like these are like Florida, I would say is definitely gonna go to the Republicans. Like, what are your thoughts on like Ohio? Because like Ohio, it's kind of mixed here. So like Sheridan Brown here, like most people are predicting that Republicans are gonna win the state of Ohio, and currently Sheridan Brown is ahead by 1%. Now you could obviously make the argument that it's a much more rural area, and due to that, it's gonna underestimate Republicans and not count low propensity voters. But Ohio, currently the Democrat is leading by the same margin that Republicans are leading in like a state like, not a state like Pennsylvania, but let's take a look at, for instance, Wisconsin, for instance.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin, Democrats are leading by 1%. And in Ohio, Democrats are leading by 1%. And by the way, both these areas are areas which are more rural areas, right? So if you were to see a polling error in these specific areas, it would be approximately equivalent, right? Like, I mean, if you take a look at this, last poll which shows Marino ahead, even though majority of people are giving Ohio to the Republicans, Marino is only ahead in a Rasmussen Reports poll. Even in the Trafalgar Group polls, which actually tend to overestimate Republicans a lot, it shows Sheridan Brown is behind by 1%, right? And in Wisconsin, like you're seeing here, like the Republican is actually leading here in the last two polls here in this at least eight polls here. So what are your thoughts on that? Like a lot of people are discounting that. Like what are your thoughts? Do you think Wisconsin could flip possibly?
I do believe that Wisconsin is a possibility, and if I were to say a Senate race that is after the Ohio Senate race, I would pick Wisconsin, but I do believe that Wisconsin will go to the Democrats, albeit by a smaller margin. However, if Donald Trump is able to win Wisconsin and have the general underestimation in the polls that he's had in recent election cycles, then I do believe that due to, again, the down ballot effect of presidential years and the case of split ticket voting going down in recent years as well, I do believe that Eric Houvde may be able to squeak out a win. As for Ohio, Ohio has been shifting quite hard to the right in recent years. It used to be the bellwether state.
Yeah.
Now it is a very conservative state, along with Iowa. And in fairness, I would say the entire Midwest has been shifting to the right, while certain states in the Sun Belt are moving to the left, such as Texas and Georgia and Arizona. But I would say that the Midwest is generally moving to the right. Areas like Wisconsin and Ohio and Iowa, like if you go to that scorecard right there, and if you look at Ohio,
yeah, you mean over here?
Look at it right there. In 2020, at this point in time, Biden was up by 0.2. Donald Trump ended up winning the state by 8. Now, obviously, I believe that pollsters will be able to change their methodologies to account for this. I personally believe that the polling will be more accurate this year than in 2020, especially by a state basis. So I do believe that Donald Trump will be able to win Ohio by near double-digit margins, and I also believe that will be able to pull Bernie Moreno over the line and unseat incumbent Sherrod Brown.
Yeah, I mean, like in Ohio, like for example, in 2020, like Trump got underestimated by around 7.2 percentage points, right? In fact, if you take a look at like 538 here, let me just pull this up really quick. 538 projection 2020. So 538 currently they're giving Donald Trump the upper hand here. So let me just take a look at this really quick. In 2020, okay, taking a look at this, 538, and this is kind of getting into the general election. This video is kind of mixed, guys, just so that you guys are aware of this. In Ohio in 2020, they put Ohio as being a toss-up state, right? So I mean, that's how like it underestimated Donald Trump. He ended up winning by what, 8 percentage points, right? So
Yeah.
like it definitely, like the polling data in Ohio, I could see it definitely underestimating Republicans, and I could see that definitely happening. But yeah, not to stray too far away from the Senate, but like I mean, yeah, definitely you could see that happening. Obviously, Donald Trump, generally speaking, does overperform Senate Republicans. Generally speaking, he overperforms them in most
Yes.
of the elections. For example,
Though,
yeah.
when it comes to what was his name? In the most recent Michigan poll by Rasmussen, Trump is losing Michigan by a point, and Mike Rogers is actually leading by a point. So I do believe that in those three states, there could be voters who vote for Kamala Harris in the presidential election and then vote for the Republican nominee in the Senate. Though I do believe that there's not enough of them for them to outrun Trump, but I do believe that the amount that Trump outruns them will be lower because of those voters.
Yeah, I actually saw a statistic one time. I was watching like a TYT video, and I saw that basically there was a poll in Michigan done, and Michigan has about 2% of its electorate is Muslim, and about
Yes.
about 1/3 of Muslims in the state of Michigan said they were going to vote for Jill Stein, right?
Yeah.
Now, like that might not seem like a lot, but like 1/3 of 2%, that's about 0.5%. Like that could really flip an election right now. Currently, like latest Atlas Intel poll shows Donald Trump ahead by 2%, but like Kamala Harris is only ahead by 0.6% according to the RCP average, right? Like even a 0.5% flip, especially with a lot of Muslim mayors, endorsing the former president. Now,
Yes.
I don't necessarily believe that. Like I think people overhype endorsements. I don't think that many people make their decision based on what some random politician endorsed a candidate. I think
Yes, and
endorsement.
even if they do, they're less likely to actually vote for said candidate.
Yeah, and like I mean, yeah, and I think that Muslims definitely, especially with the Gaza issue, and even like for example, if you have like extreme, like more towards the left Democrats who may have voted for Joe Biden in 2020, if they don't vote for Trump but don't vote for Harris, that's essentially a vote for Trump.
Bias too far in the way, but I
Yeah.
will say though, as for as for the Muslim vote, I do believe that. What were the results for Muslims in 2020? Because I believe it was quite lopsided towards the Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure. Let's see here. 2020 Michigan by demographics. Um, by
All I'm
demographics.
saying is though, if Trump can even like cut the lead in half, which is very possible with the Israel-Palestine situation and Jill Stein, even if the lead is like cut to like plus 30 for Harris, I believe that could be a pretty major swing towards the former president, allowing him to win Michigan. And I would say the same thing for actually the Amish vote in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. There are about 90,000 Amish, I believe, in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and Pennsylvania was decided by 80,000 votes. So I do believe that if we get the Amish vote out, which is a difficult thing because Amish people tend not to vote, then the Republicans will have a pretty good chance at winning in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean Pennsylvania, like especially with a high Amish vote. Like, I mean, I'm not sure because Amish people, they are definitely less likely to vote compared to other groups, right?
Yes.
So, like historically speaking, if they follow historical trends, I don't think that's going to be a huge issue because if they don't vote, then it's not really going to make a difference, right?
Yes. However, there's certain things happening, like Governor Shapiro's attack on raw milk, I've heard. Like, certain issues do sway things that you also need to take into account, just as much as historical trends.
Yeah, but like I mean, Governor Shapiro, like I wouldn't necessarily. The Governor Shapiro has like a 60% approval rating, I heard, or something, right?
Yeah.
So like I don't think
I
Governor.
personally think that if that Kamala Harris would have done better if she picked him.
Yeah, I mean, Governor Shapiro probably would have been her best bet. I mean, I get like progressives like Tim Walz, but at the same time, like I mean, she needs Pennsylvania, right? Like if Kamala doesn't win Pennsylvania, she's done, right? So like if she loses Pennsylvania, like she doesn't have a path. That's it, right? Her path is over, right?
Her path is the Rust Belt. That is her path.
Yeah, like I mean, yeah, let me just go ahead and open.
Unless she pulls an upset in one of like Georgia or North Carolina, her path is pretty much just the Rust Belt.
Okay. Okay, guys. So we just got our electoral map here, and so like basically what I'm gonna go and do right now is I'm gonna fill out these states here, and this video is kind of like not very much on track on anything. It's just kind of a general speaking discussion, right? About
Election discussion.
yeah, about where basically the race is. I might do more videos like this in the future because I think these videos are a little bit better compared to time limited, very concrete videos. But these are kind of write down in the comment section, by the way, guys, whether or not you like these types of videos, just so that way I know these types of videos might be annoying. Write that down in the comments. Write down if you like these videos or not. But like, okay, so what are your thoughts here? What are your thoughts now at this point? Like, so for the states here, which states do you think Kamala has a chance of winning? Let's just kind of do Kamala's 270 path. So if Kamala wins on election night, how is she gonna win? What are your thoughts?
All right. So first up, she's going to win Maine.
Yeah, so she's gonna win Maine. Yeah, Maine.
Yeah, and she's not winning the second district. She's winning the first district.
Yeah. All right. So good. All right. At this point, yeah.
You leaving Virginia blank and Minnesota blank, or
we'll leave Virginia and Minnesota blank. Like, what are your thoughts? How many? What percent of the vote do you think she's gonna win in Virginia and Minnesota?
Oh, I think Virginia, she will have maybe like a 4 or 5 point lead.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm inflating that, but the high turnout among strong Republican counties in the early voting of Virginia does bring worrying signs, as well as Donald Trump campaigning in Virginia today. I actually saw his rally there. Normally, you wouldn't campaign in a state that you're losing by a ton, unless it's like New York and California and you want to win the popular vote like Donald Trump does. So I find it that the Harris-Walz campaign should be somewhat worried about Virginia, but I wouldn't say it's like their top concern right now compared to states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. So I would probably say Virginia goes to Harris by about 4 to 6 points.
4 to 6 points, yeah.
Again, guys, take everything I say with a grain of salt. The things that I consume do tend to be right-leaning. So don't just try not to think of what I say as gospel, because I don't know everything, and I could be very wrong. If you want, you guys can put out your predictions in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Maybe bring in some compelling arguments, so that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, like, Virginia, I think it's actually going to be much closer than 4 to 5 percentage points, because, I mean, like, currently, like, what's the margin right now? I think that, like, the fact that Glenn Youngkin was able to win in 2021, where, like, Republicans weren't really expected to win in 2021, right? And, like, the fact that he was able to win in 2021, in, like, generally speaking, Donald Trump overestimates Senate Republicans, right? So the fact that he was able to win in even that election, I think is really telling that Republicans can definitely overperform themselves. Here, currently, Kamala's ahead by 5.8 percentage points. Like, recent Rasmussen poll shows her ahead by 2 percentage points. I could see potentially going in the lean margin. That is a possibility. Like, for lean margin for me is 2.1 to 4.9%. Somewhere like 3% would probably be where I would be headed for that. So, like, let's go ahead and give her, okay, first argument's sake, let's go ahead and give her Minnesota and Virginia.
Yes.
Like, so what do you see your path? Because I don't necessarily think that, I think that her path would be the Rust Belt. I think that's her easiest path at this point.
Yeah, Rust Belt, Nebraska second, I would say, is her path.
Yeah, like, so, like, if she wins Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, she's basically at 269, and she would have been Nebraska second, okay? But, like, do you see her potentially flipping Nevada?
You know, actually, I was thinking about that because earlier Nevada was pure toss-up. And the thing about Nevada is it's harder to poll than a lot of the battleground states. As you can see, it's only worth 6 electoral votes compared to the other battleground states like Pennsylvania, which has 19, or North Carolina and Georgia with 16 apiece. So it has lesser people, and states with less people are obviously much harder to poll. So Nevada polling, I try and take them with a grain of salt. Though after seeing the early voting in Nevada, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Republicans are leading in Clark County, which is the Las Vegas area, like very metropolitan and all of that. So I think that should be a worrying sign to the Democrats. So I do believe that Nevada will flip red this election cycle. Though I could be wrong. but I find it unlikely.
Yeah, so currently in Nevada, guys, so Republicans are currently out in the early vote by 5 percentage points. Currently, if you take a look at it overall, Republicans, this is actually an interesting development. Party registration across all mail-in and early in-person votes, Republicans are tied with Democrats right now, 40% to 40%. Now, that's actually interesting because I looked at it about this morning, and it was actually 41% to 40%. And they've crossed 70 million votes. So, I mean, Republicans are definitely doing good in the early vote. Like, they're 5% out of the Democrats in the early vote. Only 1 million people have already voted. But I mean, yeah, I think like especially with the early vote now, Nevada, Arizona, Republicans are ahead by 9% in Arizona. That's like crazy. And that's one of the reasons why I think that Republicans might be able to win in Arizona. And this is actually a shocking prediction for me because for basically this entire election season, guys, I've been telling you guys that Arizona, there's no way that it's going to vote Democrat. It's going to vote for Kerry Lake, but there actually might be a possibility. The recent Atlas Intel poll shows Kerry Lake ahead by 1 percentage point, only 1 percentage point. But Atlas Intel, if you know, it's a very accurate pollster, and the fact that Republicans are ahead by 9% in Arizona's early vote, I think that's definitely predictive in a sense, if you will. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think Kerry Lake has a chance at least?
Um, well, I'll say this. I think all the battleground states that happen to be Senate races are a chance for the Republicans, including Nevada, despite me thinking that that will most likely go blue. I do believe that Arizona will stay blue. I think
Yeah.
Carrie Lake is not the strongest candidate that they could have run. Like, I personally like Carrie Lake. I would love for her to be in the Senate. But she lost the gubernatorial race, which should be easier for Republicans than the Senate race. She would do much better in a state like, I don't know, Louisiana or something, where Make America Great Again is more prevalent in the day to day.
Yeah.
Than a battleground like Arizona. As for the whole split ticket voting thing, I don't see those Trump voters voting for Gallego, or at least I see a very small amount. But I could definitely see some people who are just like, they're Trumpy, they like Trump, they vote for Trump, they don't even look at the rest of the races, and they like. I could definitely see that as well. But
yeah, but I mean, like, especially with the Trump down ballot effect, I think that it is very interesting because in 2020, Republicans were expected. Like, let's just take a look at this here. Like, let me just take a look at this. Um, Okay, so in 2020, guys, Republicans, just for instance, guys, they were expected, guys, they had like a 3% chance basically of winning the House in 2020. Okay, and this is very relevant because the down ballot effect is going to be extremely important. So according to 538 at the time, they were forecasted to win about 55 seats, right? Now, if you take a look at the actual results here, take a look at the actual results here. So if you look at the actual results here, Republicans ended up winning 213. Okay? So Republicans basically overestimated themselves by almost 60 seats in the House. They were almost tied with they were like 9 seats behind the Democrats. And one of the reasons why I believe was because Donald Trump was at the top of the ballot, and that definitely helped some of the people down the ballot. And I think that will affect also the Senate races as well. And so, like, I think that Donald Trump definitely is a prevailing force. I think that he definitely, like, if a state votes for Donald Trump, I think the senator in that state is definitely helped by a large margin. So I think the idea that Republicans who vote for Donald Trump are just gonna vote for Donald Trump, I don't necessarily think that's true. Because like in 2020, Republicans like really outperformed themselves in the House. They were expected to get demolished in the House. They only ended up losing by like 10 seats, right? They gained 15 seats, lost 3 seats.
yeah.
So like I think Carrie Lake is very much like Donald Trump, and I think that it's interesting, especially with Donald Trump. Like, correct me if I'm wrong here, but like I think that like Republicans who try to imitate Trump aren't able to get elected, but Donald Trump is able to get elected. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
Republicans
I would agree with you.
Republicans like who try to like imitate Trump and like Trump is that good and everything, they don't end up winning. But Donald Trump, if he runs in that same election, he'll end up winning. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like people are spreading. Like, there's a rumor that Vivek might run for the gubernatorial election
Yeah, in
Ohio in
2026.
2026. And then the headline said, which gives Democrats the highest chance that they've had in years, which obviously shows, like, maybe Make America Great Again is like a Trump and only Trump thing. Though I do believe that certain candidates can obviously still win if they live in a deep red area.
Yeah, I mean, like deep red areas, you can be any Republican. You can be from Liz Cheney to Donald Trump. You can win if you're in a deep red state, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so you don't think so? Okay, so do you think Kamala can win in any of Nevada? Do you think she can win? Which one? Which one
I
do you
told you about
think?
that. It was a toss up in my head, and I was going to give the slight knife edge, razor thin lead to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz until I saw the early voting data, which has shifted my perspective onto Donald J. Trump winning Nevada. Though I think it's very much possible for Democrats to win in Nevada, but that includes them having a good election day turnout and possibly having just more independents and the others 20% voting for them. It would need quite a bit of an oomph for Nevada to be crossed over the line for the Democrats, but it is still very much possible.
Yeah, yeah. Well, do you think so? You don't think they can win there? So you basically think the easiest path for Kamala?
I think they can win there, but I find it much more unlikely for them to win there than for them to win in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Yeah, and like the real problem for the Democrats, and even like not really, but Nevada's really a useless state. Not like in terms of like if you live there, it's a useless state, but like in terms of like the electoral map, like the only situation where it would be useful.
There are 4 scenarios in which Nevada brings the candidate over the line.
Really?
70. 4 scenarios
Well,
in the entire seven swing state.
Assuming there's 7. Yeah.
There are 4 scenarios. I don't remember them off the top of my head. I do remember one is like Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada, though I do think Michigan is going to be the most left-leaning, and Wisconsin definitely will not be the most left-leaning.
Yeah, but like, yeah, even in that scenario, like Democrats would still end up winning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, I mean,
yeah. When I said Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, I meant for Donald J. Trump.
Oh, you meant for Trump. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, yeah. Right I know. Yeah. I've never seen that.
That's one of very few scenarios where Nevada pulls it over the line. It's more just like an extra give me. Like I would say if Trump wins Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia. Oh yeah. So that's one of very few scenarios in which Nevada pulls a candidate over the edge. There's only 4 scenarios in which that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I could, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, but I mean, so what I've seen, yeah, I agree with you. What I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing a similar trend actually, where Nevada actually pulls a candidate over 269. So you gave this scenario here. Another scenario is Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania for the Democrats. If they don't win Nebraska second, which is a possibility, again, they're at 269, they'd have to win Nevada, right? So it's kind of interesting. They're exactly 269, and then they'd have to win that. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, so
Nebraska's second congressional is very
iffy.
Important for the Democrats to hold on to. Because if Trump sweeps the Sun Belt and gets the second district, it's a tie, I believe. And if it's a tie, it's a Trump victory. Let's be real. The House delegation will not go to Kamala Harris.
You don't believe the House is going to vote for Kamala? The House is going to vote for the Democrats, rather.
Well, I don't know who the House is going to vote for. What I do know is that on a state-by-state basis, as the House delegation goes by states, for example, Wyoming has the same power in the House as California. It's sort of like the Senate. So when it comes to the state delegation, yes, I would say it's an easy Trump victory, considering that we've got pretty much all of like the middle part, like North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho, like that probably has less people there than New York City, but it has the same amount of power that California has. So the House delegation will go to Trump. The House itself, I think, remains a toss-up. I think it will go with whoever wins the presidency due to down ballot effects.
Yeah, I mean, like, I see Republicans currently winning the House by around 10 seats, right? Like, even if you take a look, like, just to back me up here, like, 538, which is not that, very underestimates Republicans all the time. Like, currently, 538 has the House, currently they have Republicans winning. Forecasted seats, they have Republicans winning 14 seats over the Democrats, right?
Yes.
Like that's a lot, right? They have 6 currently as being tossed up. Okay? Even if you give all 6 to the Democrats and you only include the lean Democrat and lean Republican, Republicans would still end up winning by around 7 to 8 seats, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, yeah, the House.
The thing about the House polls are obviously much less accurate than presidential polls or presidential state polls, considering the fact that they have incredibly small sample sizes, which means that there's going to be a very high margin of error. So you have to more so just do like a general poll of the generic ballot and then try and do it by there. But it's really hard to predict the House considering that there's much less people per House seat than there is per state.
Yeah, and I mean, like that's one of the problems. Like, for example, when Donald Trump was running in the primaries, there weren't very many polls taken in a lot of the. For example, on Super Tuesday, for instance, there weren't a lot of polls taken in a lot of the states. So some states showed Donald Trump ahead by like 30%, and Nikki Haley ended up winning Vermont. Yet the polls show Donald Trump ahead by 30%, right? Because there's not very many polls. You have like only 1 or 2 polls in those states, and that's one of the problem with the House. And that's one of the problems, really, even like, for instance, in. Okay, so do you think that Republicans here in the state of Wisconsin are going to end up. Sorry, not Wisconsin, but do you think they're going to end up winning, for instance, in Ohio? Do you think they're going to end up winning?
Yeah, I would believe so. I believe we already went through this though.
Yeah. But, like, so.
Go to Nebraska.
Nebraska? Okay. So Fisher there in that. Do you think he's going to
Yeah,
win?
all right. So there's actually quite a few polls in Nebraska that show Dan Osborne leading. However, those are pretty much all either centrist independent groups that are going to be super favored towards Dan Osborne, or polls that are funded by Dan Osborne. New York Times Siena has Fisher up to a pretty small margin for a heavily red state like Nebraska. Economist YouGov has Fisher up by 7. Like, both of these are not good showings for the Republicans. +7 and +2 is not good. I do not think that Deb Fisher is a good candidate. She never does any debates. She never does any campaigning. She is honestly like, if Nebraska was not a red state, Fisher would get blown out of the water. But due to Donald Trump, I do believe that Deb Fisher will win, considering that Dan Osborne is more likely to caucus with the Democrats than with the Republicans, though he would be more of like a Joe Manchin kind of senator.
Yeah. Like, how much? Do you know how much she won her primary by?
How much?
I'm not exactly sure. Do you know how much?
No, I can search it up if you'd like.
Yeah, if you find it, just tell me. But like, yeah, like even in like 2018, she ended up winning by 20%, and in 2012 she ended up winning by 16%, and currently she's ahead by like 5% basically if you average out these polls. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think the reason for that though is Dan Osborne is running as an independent rather than a Democrat. Independents are obviously going to do better than Democrats in Nebraska.
yeah. I mean that's a smart. So the Democrats aren't running anybody.
They're running a Democrat in the Nebraska special.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
if I was the Democratic Party, I would just leave it alone. To be honest with you, because an independent is better than a Republican, right?
I would say the same for Republicans that are campaigning in the New England area of America.
Yeah. Because like, yeah, I mean, like, honestly, if you're like a Republican, like in New England, I would say just flip to independent and just run with the independent party, right? Because
Yeah,
you're definitely.
there's probably certain complex things that bar certain people from doing that without something happening. But yeah, it would definitely be advantageous for reds living in blue states and blues living in highly red states to switch to being an independent, considering that a lot of voters just vote by party. Like, oh, I'll vote non-Democrat, or oh, I'll vote non-Republican. But if it's an independent, then you are like, maybe I should look into that person. And if it's a good candidate, they're more likely to get elected.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, but one of the things that I would say that if I was a hardcore Democrat, one of the concerns that I would say, like, just to be very clear with you guys, I'm not like taking sides here or anything, but like if I was a hardcore Democrat or a hardcore Republican, like I wouldn't want people to run as independent just because I think that in a sense also that they might compromise on some issues, and I definitely don't want the parties to compromise and move to the left or move to the right in a sense, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be like, yeah, I mean, Republicans have already like compromised a lot on abortion, if you know.
Yes.
And like one of the things that I would say about abortion is that like I don't necessarily think that compromising on abortion for Republicans is going to make them win. Because like I mean, if you're pro-abortion, which the majority of this country is, like wouldn't you just vote for Kamala Harris? Like why are you going to vote for Donald Trump, right? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But at the same
Yes.
at the same time, a lot of people who are pro-abortion are going to end up voting for Donald Trump. Like about 60% of this country is pro-abortion. 65, almost 70% are pro-abortion, and like Donald Trump still ends up winning, 48, 49% of the vote, right? So
Yes.
I could see that as well happening. But yeah, like I mean, just a thought there. Also, like for example, Democrats compromising on, like for instance, like Democrats ran on a lot of things in 2020 that they compromised on really quick. Like for instance, Joe Biden ran in 2020 on like passing a $15 minimum wage, national minimum wage. He didn't do any of that. He also said that he was going to pass a voting rights bill in 2022. He didn't end up doing that. And they really, a lot of the parties are compromising on a lot of the issues. Even Kamala Harris, like she's compromised on like fracking, which, by the way, there's a lot of like environmentally, people who are very environmental who want to ban fracking and stuff like that. And like both of the parties have really compromised on a lot of issues in this presidential campaign.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that's how a campaign works. Is during the primaries, you show yourself as left or right, and then as the presidential election comes, you move more towards the center. That's general political strategy. So that's why a lot of the times candidates are seen as big liars. For one, because politicians are liars a lot of the time, and second of all, it's all political strategy. Like they're not playing to be the most pure person on the ticket. They're trying to be the most winnable person on the ticket.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I could definitely see that happening. But yeah, so okay, so like just to kind of like wrap this up a little bit. I know like this is kind of a longer video, guys. But like, what are your thoughts? Okay, so what's your final prediction right now? What's your final prediction for the Senate? Just say it out.
Prediction?
Say it out.
I would say
This is actually, yeah.
I would say
yeah.
50 to I would say 50 to 55 for the Republicans.
50 to 55.
Like that's their margin. Like I would say that the lowest, that their floor is 50. You could say that there are certain things with things like Texas, but I do not think that Colin Allred is a better candidate than Beto O'Rourke and such, as well as it being a presidential year compared to 2018 being a blue wave year. So I do believe Texas will vote red. So I would say that the floor, if it's an average night for Republicans, it's 50. Like the floor for a devastating night for Republicans would be like losing Texas.
No, I mean
Florida,
like
losing Nebraska, but I find that unlikely. What I would say is possible is 50, maybe even 51 to 53 or 54 is the more so average for me.
Like,
so I would say what I mostly believe is it will be 52 for the Republicans.
Okay.
Possible for 53.
Yeah. Okay. So
I do believe that it will go with the president. I'm fairly confident on that.
Well, yeah, that's kind of our discussion, guys, for today. If you like this video, like, I mean, I'm not sure, this wasn't exactly a 100% organized video. Definitely a lot of it will be cropped out and edited out. You might see a very condensed version of this video. But if you like more videos like these that are kind of a little bit more informal, we were searching things up throughout the entire video, a little bit more informal, like write that down in the comments. Yeah, like informal discussion. Like if you like those types of videos compared to more, prepared, pre-prepped videos, make sure that you write that down in the comments